What's going on, Tweener Heads? Welcome back to another video. I am very excited today because we just had the chance to interview Sacred Heart coach William Boe-Wiegaard. This has probably been one of the most fun interviews I've ever had, especially with a college coach of his caliber, coaching a D1 school as well. So I'm very happy that I get to share this experience with you guys. I just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer right now because we were in the lobby of their pit center, their athletic center, and there were a lot of people going on. So if there's a lot of noise in the background, I do apologize in advance. But make sure to go check out Sacred Heart Universiy, their tennis team and their tennis program. It's a great up-and-coming program. This program is led by Will, and I'm very excited to share with you guys what we talked about and his experience from going from college to pro to coaching a D1 school. So let's get straight into the video. What made you want to do or start coaching after being on the pro tour after?
Well, I started coaching when I was 14.
Okay.
You know, I think it was a natural. My coach growing up, he really felt that coaching was a really important part of learning.
Okay.
Because when you have to explain something to somebody, you have to know it yourself.
Yeah.
You can't explain it to a 5-year-old. You haven't quite mastered the material.
Exactly.
You know, and of course, when you're 14, you're not able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But by pushing me into that world, I think he was setting me up for a career if my pro tennis career wasn't going to work out and I wasn't going to be Roger Federer or whatever, right? So it was kind of a twofold thing where he was like, this is going to help you be a better tennis player, but it's also going to help you like just have a job one day, like potentially, right?
Yeah.
So every summer that was my job, like was, you know, obviously 14, 15, it was more just like occasional lessons here and there. But then once I got into my teens and, you know, 20s, it became I was hired to be a teaching pro at a club for the summer.
It became more legitimate. And
right. It was a real
more
job.
Intense.
Yeah, it was a real job. So that was my summer job. And then, and I really just enjoyed it. I mean, I think I found it to be exciting to see someone, grow from your knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So they get it, like the light bulb goes off and they understand all of a sudden something they didn't understand before, and they get this like joy out of that. And I know that feeling really well from being a player, like how good that feels to go to another level. And even still today, I'm still learning stuff, which is really cool. So yeah, I was most recent example of that was when I was like 29. I was in Germany. I was playing club tennis, like not the Bundesliga. That's like for the top 100 guys, but there's a Nordliga, which is the next tier down.
Gotcha.
So they have that one, and I played in Hamburg for a team there. And a guy who was like 200 in the world was on our team, and I'm playing doubles, and I'm really struggling in my returns. Like I can't keep them cross court. I can't keep them down. Like I'm just, we're getting murdered. And he goes like, look, like, we got to work on your return because this is going to kill us the whole season if you just can't do it. And so he starts watching my returns and he's like, why are you stepping in on every ball? Like you're treating it like a ground stroke. He's like, you don't have time for that. So he taught me how to return properly. There's actual return footwork that I didn't know about.
Really?
And I had trained with a lot of coaches in this area and through the U.S. and it's not a knock on them. It's just, I think, something that maybe they didn't notice in my game. I think a lot of times what we work on over here is ground strokes, maybe some approach shots, volleys, overheads, and serves. Okay. And there's very limited. I don't know if you grew up practicing your return, but
of course.
But many of the clubs don't do that. They don't take time to practice
because it's just such a natural stroke, and you treat it like a ground stroke because it's like an everyday shot.
It seems like it would be.
Because all you're doing is just hitting a ball back from the serve. You're not moving your feet as much. You're not. Right. It's basically a block.
It's a block.
It's a block.
It's a different thing.
Yeah.
And so I never trained that growing up. Yeah. So I was treating it like a ground stroke. That was causing me to have all sorts of timing issues, and just always have a different angle on the racket. Yeah. So I was really struggling on my return all the way until my late 20s. And then finally learned it, and it took my game to a whole nother level. So I'm always learning still, and that's the kind of a fun part.
You had such a successful career at Bates College, is that correct?
Right.
And you won the singles championship. You were runner-up in team, right?
We were actually in Our team never made it to the finals. It was
2005.
2005. I was the finalist in singles.
Okay, that's
individually.
Okay.
So I always qualified individually for the tournament.
Okay.
Since my freshman year.
Wow.
So I was an All-American right away.
Yeah.
And then, it just stayed that way. But my team, unfortunately, we never got good enough as a collective to go there as a team. But I did manage to bring in some doubles partners with me through,
very nice.
I think, 2 years I was able to bring doubles people with me.
So how did you take that success from college into the pro game? What made you go through that decision process?
My coach, he trained with Lendl, Paul Gastegay.
Okay.
So he knew what Lendl, #1 in the world, he knew that kind of level. And then Bud Schultz, who was the first All-American at Biggs, he was 30 in the world after it was all said and done.
True.
So he was an alumni, and he met me. It was kind of the one. Once I made the finals of the tournament my junior year, it was the decision that we should really try to win the tournament. Yeah. Right? So then that next year was a really focused effort to try to win it. Yeah. Problem was I had this guy, Matt Seeberger, who was kind of my major rival nationally in the Division III. He had won the individual, the double, and the team his freshman, sophomore, junior year. His freshman, sophomore year. Yeah. So his sophomore year was my junior year. He was a year behind me. Yeah. And that's the guy I lost to in the finals. At his home courts at UC Santa Cruz with 200, 300 people there going nuts for him. It was a really interesting environment. So then it was a decision, let's really try to win this thing the next year. Yeah. And we knew we had to go against Matt, probably, as long as he stayed healthy and didn't get injured. Yeah. And so we went up against him. I did go against him in the second round. I had my thesis to write my senior year. Yeah. So it really hurt my results in the fall because I was doing something that was mandatory for me to graduate. Yeah, exactly. And it's the kind of capstone of your whole education. Yeah. And I really took it seriously, and I really wanted to do well. Interesting. So I poured myself into that, and I kind of took a little bit away from the test. So I lost to some people that I shouldn't have lost. Well, they're good players, so...
You weren't expected. You were the favorite.
I was the favorite, but I lost. But they were still good. It wasn't like...
It wasn't like you completely went downhill. It was just a good match. Gotcha.
So I ended up losing to those guys in the fall, which caused me to lose my top 8 seeding in the national tournament. So I came in not seeded to the NCAA tournament my senior year. But I was then I didn't have to do that capstone anymore. I was able to focus again, so then I was really able to get into the zone by the time that tournament was coming around. So when I went that weekend, it was almost just perfect in terms of my prep for it. I was super healthy. I was feeling good. I was working a lot with my coach individually. We were really just, because the team season ended, so it was really just me focusing on my game with him. Yeah. And so I was able to get really sharp. And so I went in there and I played Matt Seeberger the second round, and we had a 3-set match, and I came out on top, and it was really a great moment.
That's
and
awesome.
Then I was able to beat players who I'd lost to in the fall.
Because you focused.
Consecutively. It was funny. All the people that I had lost to that year were the people that I played in that tournament. Yeah, to win it. So Nate Edmonds, Evan Tyndall, and Brian Waldron, who I met in I think it was the quarter semis and finals. Brian Waldron in the final. So all those people I lost in the fall, I then got to have revenge matches with, and it was kind of cool. So then after I won that, it was kind of a lot of discussion about, should I try to go to the next level and try to play on the pro? And it was always something I always wanted to do when I was younger. So I talked to I was a pre-med student at the time. So
really?
I was a biochem pre-med, so I was doing that.
That's a lot of pressure.
So it was like, do I want to go to med school? And I talked to my medical advisor, my professor, and she was like, look, your scores when you take the MCAT will be good for 3 years. So, it's no problem. And the average applicant age to medical school is 25. So
you had time.
She's like, you're 22. Actually medical schools prefer if you're a little bit older, because it means that you're not going there because your parents told you to go there. And so they have a less dropout rate.
Interesting.
So they actually prefer that you're a couple years out. Okay. So then I was like, okay, great. So let's go out on the tour for a couple of years, see if we like it, see how we go. Yeah. If not, I can always come back and do this thing, and feel like that. So that was the decision that was made. Okay. And I went out on the tour, and I played in my second week. I played Fabrice Martin from France, who was like 400 in the world at the time, and I lost like 4-3 or 4-2 or 4-4. Like it was pretty close. Yeah. It wasn't a blowout, and I was thinking like, hey, if I can be this kind of neck and neck with a guy who's like 400, maybe if a couple of years goes by and I train really well, I can, maybe make it.
Okay.
So that was the thought process. It was 2 weeks after I graduated, so it was really right then and there. So then I was like, okay, now how do I go about this? And so you got to get a team together, you got to get money, you got to raise all this money. It's hard, and I didn't come from wealth, or extreme wealth anyway. Yeah. Wealth is relative. I think I still consider myself wealthy compared to the majority of people in the world, but relative to trying to have $150,000 a year to burn on tennis.
For funding, it's a whole different story.
That's a different level of wealth.
Exactly.
We just didn't have that. So I had to put a website. My buddy, who was a triathlete guy, and he's a web guy, he knew that back in the day, there were triathletes who were raising money for them to go out on their campaigns, whether to go to Kona, to do the World Ironman thing or whatever, and he was like, what they were doing was setting up websites. Now this is very common now, but back when I was in 22 years old, it wasn't like Google had just come out.
Google was just the
Facebook
thing.
Had just come out. Like it was like there was a lot of internet and website stuff, but it wasn't.
It's right on the curve of just going
now,
out. Yeah.
So there weren't a lot of people like raising money through the internet with websites and stuff. But it was something that triathletes were doing. Yeah. And he was a triathlete. He was my friend from high school, and he knew how to design websites. So he just came to me and he's like, why don't I put together a website for you, and then you can just kind of share it out with people, and people can donate through PayPal, and and you can raise money, with this website platform. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll do anything because whatever. I'm just trying to chase a dream. And
so you raised money through the website.
So I raised money through the website. I basically was trying to network and trying to get this website out there. It's still up actually. It's because it costs like $10 to have it per year to run.
It's still there.
Yeah. So willboe.com is actually the website that I had, and it's gone through many iterations of revamping, over the years. But I wish I could have like the screenshots from the original website. Yeah. It's so basic, but it was funny. But we managed to get these different tiered sponsor levels with $1 a day or sponsors and things like that. So even Eric Buderak, who, I don't know if you know who he is, but
I've heard the name
he
before.
was like a top 10 in the world doubles player. He was a Division III national champion. He was 4 years older than me. He now works at the USTA, and he was a player representative on the board, the player board for the ATP. I mean, he kind of really went pretty high and far in the ATP world. He became a sponsor of mine because he saw that I was a D3 player and he wanted to help.
He wanted to help out.
So he was
chase the dream.
Yeah, so I had a bunch of backers and stuff, but we never got enough to get up to the 150,000 a year level. I mean, I had a couple thousand, 10, 20, maybe $1,000 coming in, which is sort of enough to go out and play some tournaments, but it's really not enough to like do the full shebang.
To consistently travel throughout
Plus
the world.
To have a coach and have them traveling with you,
with
and
the team
and the hitting partner and all that other stuff that goes along.
That's very different.
Very, very different level, and it's very hard to raise that kind of money.
Especially now. I mean, now it's a completely different game.
It's one of my players.
When you have
So I think also I was 22, and the mentality back then was, when you're 30, it's over.
Really? That's when you decided to like kind of just stop? Or
At my age at 22, people like your window of opportunity is 8 years. At 30, like you're 27, you're going downhill. That people were like, you're peaking at 27. And then at 30, you're going to retire because tennis is too hard on the body,
or there's too many young guns coming up in the game,
right?
And
you're ready. That's how they look at it. They saw Rafa and Nadal winning majors at 16 years old, and they saw people retiring at 30, and they were like, "You're missing it," But now we've got Federer at 37, still 2 in the world, and changing the paradigm in terms of everyone's.
The top 3 players are now in their 30s.
Exactly. And so you can play until you're in your late 30s at a very high level, world level, top in the world level.
That's very interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that the smart move for people is go to college, get your degree, and then at 22, go out and play on the tour if you want.
Okay.
You know, until you're 25, until you're 30, whatever, because you have plenty of time after that to work. From 30 to 65.
Yeah.
People are getting older and older. They're retiring later and later. I mean, you can work 30, 40 years from 30 on. So you cannot play tennis after 35, 40 years old. So I think there's plenty of time for people to come here into the college scene, develop their games, and then...
So a two-part question following that would be, one, do you encourage your players to go pro if they're good enough to go after their 4 years, or if they're good enough and they make the decision that they're between junior and senior year? And second, do you really enforce their education while playing a Division I sport?
We have awards for GPA here.
Yes.
So I think it's very important that they get the best grades that they possibly can, because that's what they're here for, and that will open up doors for everything later in life. So I always say, just have as many options as you possibly can.
Gotcha.
So then you'll have the best, chance of having a happy life. So I really stress that they do well in school, that they sit in the front row, that they, are engaged, and that they meet their professors, and that they read the material before they even show up in the class. So it's like the class is the second time that they're hearing it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to give them all the little tips and tricks to get them. We have a SAC department here that takes care of everything and helps them with tutors if they need it. And so we're very focused on that part of it, for sure. In terms of going pro,
from your experience,
encourage people to attempt it, but if you are struggling right out of the gate and you're going into the qualities of futures and you're losing love, then you need to take a pretty hard look in the mirror and be like, how big of a road is this, and do I really want to go down that road? So it's a very case-by-case basis. I would have to judge that on the person and the player and their mentality.
Gotcha.
You got to have the right mentality. You have to be mature. You cannot have the negative smashing rackets and all that kind of stuff. No, you have to be very... I suffered from that. I was a very, very competitive person, and that doesn't mean that I was a good competitor. I was very competitive, but I wasn't a good competitor. So I was always getting hard on myself and smashing rackets and yelling and screaming, and that kind of stuff really hurts your ability to perform well, and also drives people away from you because they don't necessarily want to support that. So there's lots of things that I learned. Luckily, I was able to turn the corner, become a positive person, and see the light, if you want to say it like that.
Develop a different mentality over time.
Just have that much more mature mentality, but that didn't come until I was in my late 20s, and so it
takes a while.
For me it took a while, unfortunately. But I mean, I try to explain that to these guys now, because I do have a few on the team who have that similar competitive drive, but don't know how to channel that energy in the right direction. So now we talk a lot about how do we channel that into the positive direction so that you're really maximizing your chance for success.
Yes, of course.
So I don't know. It's very difficult to say definitively, do I encourage people to go pro or not. I think it's a great experience. You travel around the world. You meet lots of people from all over the world. I think I don't know how do you quantify that in terms of education, but it's an amazing thing to have those experiences and connections. So I think it's great if they can do it, but it's a case-by-case basis.
So after coaching, you're coaching Division I now, you played D3, you went pro. What's the biggest difference that you found between D3 athletics and coming to a ever-growing school like Sacred Heart and a Division I program that's constantly changing? What's that biggest difference that you find?
That's a good question. I think that there's a lot more funding behind the Division I than there is the Division III. So I was always buying all my equipment. And here they have an equipment budget. We have a recruiting budget. I mean, so I think that there's a little bit more backing there. That kind of helps deliver maybe a little bit of a nicer experience. But I still had a great time when I was at Bates. So That's not to say that you can't be a great player and go to Division III. And I think there are some really good Division III programs out there. I mean, you don't have to go so far as to look at UTR to notice that there are D3 teams who have very good UTR players
100%.
top to bottom. So
100%.
I mean, I went to Bates because of the academics.
Okay, yeah.
So that's why I went there. And I turned down offers, scholarship offers from Wake Forest and Penn State and the University of Richmond and others. So to go there.
Okay.
Part of it is it was, Wake was really close. Like, it was between Wake and Bates for me, but Wake was 10-hour drive and Bates was 5, and I wanted to be a little bit closer to home than that. So that kind of was a factor.
Okay.
I grew up in a small town here in Reading, Connecticut, so
made it a little easier.
In a smaller school like Bates felt more comfortable at that time in my life. So there's always X factors, and I think that's what factors into everybody's decision. But what my experience is, this is a little bit of a grander thing.
Yeah.
When you come to Division I, it's much more like, wow, okay, we have like coach buses with our
whole thing
logos on it, and and so it's a little bit more like that.
So is it still something to get used to when it comes to this kind of stuff, or is it less pressure, or is it more pressure because it's such a big program?
I think that there might be a little bit more pressure to it because of the fact that you do have scholarship dollars to work with, and you have a bigger budget to work with, and so better players are typically looking at your program, stuff like that. So it's like
it's a lot of money.
Well, yeah. So you're dealing with money that you want to make sure that goes in the right directions and not make those mistakes, because then you're going to be stuck with those for many years. So. But it's fun. Like I just really enjoy it. So for me, pressure is a good thing because it gets me excited.
Yeah.
I think that was always the thing that I found, and maybe the addicting part of tennis was the nerves before the match.
Yeah.
That was always real. I actually, it was funny now thinking about it. One of the players on my team with Bates, he would crumble under that. And he would come to me right before the match, like, how do you deal with this? I'm literally like, I cannot hold the racket. And I'm like, I don't know.
It's
man.
just
You're just going to breathe and go out there, and just after the first few games, it should go away. It should be fine. Just go do your best. But he just couldn't. He just would buckle under that pressure. So I think people just respond in different ways to it.
Yeah.
For me, I like it.
You like it. You perform better under pressure.
Well, maybe. I don't know. But, I mean, maybe or maybe not. But I actually enjoy it. I think that's maybe the difference is like whether you enjoy it or not, and I think I do. And then maybe not at first I don't perform really well, but like eventually I will, because I'll get used to that and I'll make the adjustments that I need to make. And I'm very good, I think, also about admitting that my weaknesses and trying to find them. I want to know where my weaknesses are so that I can try to improve on them and then make them better for the next time, and like problem solving and just like, how do I make this better going forward, and not being like, oh no, I know everything and I don't need anyone's help, and I don't know. Like, that's completely wrong. Like, in my opinion, that's completely wrong attitude to have, like, ever in anything. So the tennis was the same. I always wanted advice from everyone all the time, and then I would hear it, and then if it works, I would try to make it. And if I didn't agree with it, I would just let it go. And then, that's
you just figure it out as you go.
Yeah, I read books, I watch videos. YouTube came along. It was like amazing because now
it's the greatest resource.
It was huge, So you can use YouTube to watch dumb stuff, or you can,
educate yourself.
You can educate. So it's a really powerful tool if you use it the right way. So I'm very much like into just
focusing on it,
gathering knowledge, being humble about it, being honest with myself and what I'm capable of and what I'm not. Of course, you don't know what you don't know, so you just have to keep trying to figure out what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I probably should have asked this at the beginning, but why did you pick Sacred Heart to be your first kind of coaching opportunity?
Well, I mean, to be honest, it fell into my lap. I was going to go to Wall Street. I was looking at something totally different. Well, actually, so I moved back from Norway a couple of years ago. The first move I made was to go up to Alex Dorado at Yale and just say, hey, do you have a position available for me? Like, I would love to work here or whatever. And he's like, no, I have my assistant for 10 years. Like, he's not going anywhere. I don't have a spot. But you can go talk to Fairfield U, because I guess he has some sort of relationship, familial relationship with Coach Bricker at Fairfield U.
Yeah.
And he knew that he needed an assistant. So I was like, okay, fine. So I went and talked to him, but he was like, look, it's this position. It pays this. And when he told me that number, my jaw basically hit the ground because I was like, how does anybody survive on that? So it just wasn't going to work out, unfortunately, because I couldn't pay the rent with what that was going to do. So I said, okay, well, I guess my kind of dream of college coaching is not going to work because I want to live here in this area, and I'm not really willing to move to other places in the world. At that time, I wasn't. I just basically decided to go different roads, seek other things, and there's an investment banker here in the area, and he was willing to give me a shot.
Really?
So I was very close. I was like 3 days away from handing in a U4 form to him, and all of a sudden I get a phone call. The head physician at Sacred Heart has opened up. Are you interested for the interview? And I was like, yes, definitely. And so I came in, I did the interview, and I had the job, and it was very interesting how the stars kind of aligned. I live 5 minutes away from campus, and so it was perfect. It's right in my backyard. I know this area really well. I grew up in Fairfield County. I have a lot of tennis contacts in this area from all the clubs and things, and we play inter-club growing up. So
it made a lot of sense.
It just made a lot of sense. I felt like I could bring a lot of value to the program. I mean, one of the big things one of my major goals that I'm trying to achieve here is like to grow this Friends of Sacred Heart tennis like network. Okay. So I think that one of the most valuable things that a college or a university can offer anyone is connections to their quote unquote real world so that they can get an internship or a job or move forward and take that next step in life. Yeah. So yes, get an education, but also get some introductions and get a job. I mean, that's kind of like
what you want to do.
So I want to be able to help them make that step. I mean, I think I believe connections are probably the single biggest thing in life. And it's what you know, but it's really who you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I definitely agree with that.
I think that that's the big thing that I'm trying to accomplish is to grow that network, and for people who want to support that mission of being a mentor or an advisor for the Sacred Heart tennis players, like please email me, please, reach out to me, because I will add you to our email list of those people. And when we have players or whatever that are studying a certain area, and I know that you are in finance, or I know that you're in communications, or I know that you're in the health industry, whatever industry you're in, and I have a student who's studying that industry and looking for connections or looking for opportunities, I can make that link happen. And that is, to me, even more rewarding than teaching them how to hit a forehand or a backhand. If I can get them a job or an interview, it's like, wow, like that's even better. So we had that last year. We had a fundraiser last year. I invited my friends from the Fairfield County Tennis Leagues. I had several of them come over, and we did little introductions where the players say their name and their year and what they're studying, and then the people the guests or the friends of Sacred Heart Tennis who arrived, they just said their name and what industry they're in, what they're working with. And from that day, we had 3 people get internships.
Really?
Yeah, just from that day. And,
wow.
And one of them is still working at that company. It's a finance firm in Stanford, a hedge fund in Stanford. And he's still working there now. That's awesome. He's probably going to get a job after he graduates. He's a senior captain.
That's fantastic.
Brian Einstelz. And it was amazing. So that feeling was just wow, and it really motivated me to like, hey, we got to grow this thing. We got to make this a super powerful tool. Because the tennis program here is young. I would say we're 25 years. The program's only 25 years old. So our oldest alum is 47. Wow. Or 40, whatever it is.
That's still pretty young
43 or something.
For having a young program for 25 years, it's like, that's kind of unheard of when you think of all the other D1 programs.
Right. And we have 100 something alums, tennis alums. So it's not that big of a network. And I want to make it much bigger.
You want to grow it.
Right? So now over the last year, I've managed to get 462 people on the list. So that's, in addition to the 100 of the alums. So now I want to keep growing that and make that even more powerful. And, and the connections that we have, I mean, we're talking about former partners at Goldman. Yeah. Former head of HR at Credit Suisse and Morgan Stanley. People are hiring the director of human resources at the biggest banks in the world, right? those are the kinds of connections that really can make huge changes, and in the student athletes' lives when they meet that kind of a person. So
creating a huge change for them. Yeah. Right.
Big opportunity for them. So I'm interested to meet anyone who wants to help. You never know who knows who. So anyone who wants to come. But of course, if you're a CFO or a CTO or a CEO of a company, we would love to have you, be part of the program and be willing to be a mentor or advisor or anything to any of these guys, or come play tennis with these guys. Come join a practice if you want to come and hit some balls and meet them and talk to them. I mean, there's a lot of fun ways which we can make those introductions happen.
So creating a network through recruitment, not only for tennis, but for the real world as well, is the bigger overall goal you're saying for the program, rather than just focus on the sport itself.
Well, we do that too. So it's like we have the recruiting stuff. We gotta make sure we're bringing in the top better players all the time. And then we have what's going on here currently. So their training and their weekly schedules and their class schedules and their GPAs and their competitions, and just making sure that that's all set and good. And then we have the future where when they're going out the door, how are we helping them to do that? So it's like getting them in, making sure they're great for 4 years, and then helping them take the next step after, whether that's grad school or just job. So there's that transition. And I went through that transition, when I was at Bates, and so I know kind of how that worked, and also how maybe we could make it better. So that's what I'm trying to do.
That's awesome. And going back to recruiting for like the young guys, and what was it like recruiting someone for the first time to a Division I program like Sacred Heart? What was that process like? How did you talk to them?
There's a lot of compliance stuff that you're just not aware of when you're a player.
Yeah.
So I had never recruited anyone for a D3, 2, 1, JUCO, anything. That wasn't involved. So I didn't know about all that stuff that was involved. And so there's a recruiting exam you have to take.
Really?
There's a NCAA manual of bylaws that you have to read. In terms of when you're allowed to contact them, how many times you're allowed to contact them, what you can send them in the mail. It's like all sorts of stuff, whether you can go see them in a competition or not, and how to invite them, and what they're allowed to do when they're on campus. And there's a lot of compliance that's involved with doing this. And so that was definitely a major thing that I had to learn and get comfortable with. And so, and anytime I have any question or doubt in my mind about something, I'm calling our compliance officer and, texting and saying, hey, am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do that?
So you're still learning as you go, kind of?
Of course. I mean, you're always questioning everything, because the bylaws are good, but they're not perfect. So they don't always speak to every single kind of situation. So you can hunt through the book and try to figure it out, but ultimately there might just not be there, and so it's up to the compliance officer to give you a best judgment on that decision. So anytime that I do anything, it's like, even having our interview right now, I had to go get clearance from the communications department.
I was about to ask.
They have to go do a background check and make sure that it's a legitimate source and it's all this stuff, right? So that's basically
just to make sure everything's together. And
there's a lot of red tape that I was not aware of, and it's a administrative role, maybe more so than a coaching role. But I do as much coaching as I'm there every practice. I try to I design every practice, so I'm not not there.
Gotcha.
I'm definitely there, and I'm always at the competitions, and I'm always watching all their matches. So I'm definitely coach, but also on top of that, I'm an administrator and manager, and doing a lot of paperwork and doing a lot of other things that I maybe didn't know that I would have to do. But it's fine. I think every job has its pros and cons, and for me, that would definitely be one of the major cons of the job, is that you have to do a lot of paperwork, but.
I think that's a con for everyone.
I don't think anyone likes paperwork. So.
No. What's your number one selling point? If you were to pitch me, what would be your number one selling point?
I just think that for me personally, or for me as a coach, or for me as a program and as a university,
if you were to say I'm a recruit in Connecticut and I'm looking to play Division I athletics, what would be your number one selling point to me? Or if you were trying to recruit me, what would you say and how would you go about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a different conversation with every recruit I have, so it's really hard for me to say like this is the single most enticing piece of information that I can give someone.
Okay.
But because everybody has a different scenario.
Okay.
Maybe they want to be if they're international versus domestic. Like that's a different conversation. How much of a budget are they working with? What are they trying to study?
Yeah.
Do we have the program they're trying to get into?
Yeah.
With the competitions, what kind of culture or coaching are they used to?
Yeah.
Are they used to a hard-nosed coach who yells and screams? If so, that's not me. I'm not like that. Okay. I don't scream and yell at my players. I talk to them and I try to treat them as adults.
Yeah.
And so I have conversations with them, and I try to figure out what's motivating them, what their goals are. Yes. How do we set a plan that makes sense for them? And I try to get them to buy in to the program that we've set up. And I'm also flexible to hear people's thoughts and hey, maybe we can try this, maybe we can try that. Sure.
Gotcha.
Why not? Let's, that makes sense to me. And so it's maybe one of the things that's good about me is that I'm flexible with whoever's coming in, and I'm adaptable, and I want them to have a great experience. So for me, it's like, if someone likes something some way, I'll try to adjust to make it work for them, as best as I can.
Yeah.
And I also was on the tour for I went to college, I was an All-American, and then I went on the tour. So I have a lot of experience, maybe that some of the college coaches that are in the country don't necessarily have.
Yes.
And I have been coaching for a very long time. So, not at the collegiate level, but in other levels. I've worked with WTA and ATP players.
Yeah.
I coach them, and I've also coached junior ITF players. So I've coached
the wide range of experience
of people. So I feel very comfortable in terms of my ability to help them get to the next level. Mm-hmm. Every player on my team last year's UTR went up by a point. Wow. So that's trackable. That's measurable.
That's very measurable.
You can go back and look and see, our players and what their UTRs were last fall coming in and what they are now.
Yeah.
Right? It all went up a point. I'm very happy about that.
Wow.
That's great.
Fantastic.
They're all playing better. I like that. They're all understanding the game better. They're playing smarter.
Yeah.
Tennis. So it's a combination of me and telling them what to do, but it's also this environment that they're in.
Yeah.
Right? So we have a lot of people that help me make this thing go. We have strength coaches. We have facilities that are nice. We have all these things that help this happen. Yeah. So it's not just all me.
It's the whole program.
It's the whole thing. Yeah. So it's hard. We have Bobby Valentine as our athletic director, which is, I think, a huge win for the university because the guy was obviously a famous baseball player and then a manager of major teams like the Sox, the Red Sox, and the Mets.
When someone told me that, I was surprised because it's not just for baseball, but as a whole, knowing sports in that general vicinity, it's amazing to have that name recognition.
Amazing. And he's got so many contacts, it does, the mind just reels when you think about it.
Yeah.
So he's bringing a lot of weight here. Building, a major complex, the Bobby Valentine Sport Recreation Center. We're doing a $2 million tennis court now facility. It's going to be ready in the fall.
Fantastic.
It's going to be amazing, So I just think that there's going to be more good things to come.
Yeah.
I grew up here, so this school was nothing like this when I was in high school.
I totally agree.
It's wild.
I grew up in Fairfield. I've seen this place when I first played USTA when I was 10 or 12. I played on these courts, and now I drove up here, and they're not here anymore.
Right.
So seeing all this is kind of new to me as well, and seeing all these new buildings, I'm just going, wow, just unbelievable that Sacred Heart's grown this much.
Right. And they're gonna keep growing. They're doing something right. I don't know, but they're putting the money to good work, and
it's fantastic.
Facilities are getting better and better, and I mean, my budget, there are programs that are getting cut across the country. I think there was 3 that I know of.
Which ones?
We had St. Francis, PA.
Oh, really?
I want to say St. Peter's, SPU.
Okay.
And there's one more that I'm forgetting at the moment, but I know there's at least 3 in my head that I got emails about that are cut.
For D1 programs?
For D1 programs. So, you know, and my budget went up.
Yeah.
And my scholarships went up. So my program's growing, whereas other programs are going, unfortunately, you know,
getting cut.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I just think I'm very lucky to be where I am right now. I hope it continues to go in this direction. And I'm going to do everything I can to try to help it grow and make it successful for people who are looking to come here. You know, we have a guy from Uruguay who I recruited. That was my first recruit.
How was
the
that?
first person I offered
international
a scholarship to.
Wow.
And he's an international guy from Uruguay, and he came in and he did a lot of really good work. Last weekend he really showcased what he has, you know, in terms of his tennis ability. The guy fights like a champ, doesn't get negative, just goes, come on, let's go, every single point, win or lose. Fought off 5 match points through the doubles tournament. He, you know, made it to the finals of the A flight tournament as a freshman, which is not easy to do.
It's not easy to do at all.
And our returning sophomore, Luca from Puerto Rico, is his partner, and he actually played unbelievably well with him. So they're going to be a great doubles pair to look out for, because they're only going to get stronger.
Exactly.
And yeah, Will can do a lot of damage.
Fantastic.
And in the singles, he beat a tough guy in the first round, and then had played number 1 seed in the second round. But unfortunately, through the doubles, the 4 rounds of doubles that he played the day before, plus the tough match in the morning, he ended up cramping. So he had to withdraw from the match because he was having cramping issues. So we're working on his nutrition and trying to make sure he doesn't cramp again.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I mean, it's his first competition as a first-year student.
It's fantastic.
I'm really excited for him. Fantastic. And we're talking to some really good recruits for this next season, both sides, men and women.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, we're looking to. I think we're going to go to another level again with our players next year.
So, what would you say to kids? This is probably my last question for you today. What would be the ultimate advice you would have for kids trying to play Division I that are still in high school or playing the junior level?
UTR.
Tennis? UTR.
Focus on your UTR.
Okay.
All the college coaches are looking at UTR. It's revolutionized the ranking system. It's a fair rating system.
It's very interesting.
It's based on how many games you got off of me. That's it. It's not what round did we play in the tournament and whether you just won or lost. If it's 7-6, 7-6, that's a lot more competitive than a 6-0, 6-0. Mm-hmm. So, you know,
I think that's very fair.
I think it's very fair. I think it's a very good system. And I know a lot of USTA people are, there's a division there, but I'm strongly on the side of UTR.
And I love it. Yeah. I think UTR is definitely something that's revolutionizing college tennis when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
so that's what my big advice.
Really?
Focus on UTR and look at the UTRs of the teams that you're interested in and see whether or not you're going to fit on that team.
That's fantastic.
That's not to say that you could be on a growth trajectory that's very high, and when the coach is looking at you, if you're below their team, you might actually be someone they're interested in. You could be that diamond in the rough who's just a late bloomer. Yeah. So it's all good, but just make sure you're trying to look at your UTR and get that thing as high as you can, and just also be a very positive person, hardworking, positive person. If you're a negative person and you get angry on the court and you're smashing your rackets and that kind of stuff, coaches in general do not want to bring a what they call toxic player onto their roster. So that'll make it very difficult for you if you're a very talented player but you're very negative. It makes it, you're going to lose opportunities and you don't even realize it. Yeah, exactly. So I would say focus on your UTR, but also your mentality, and make sure that you're a very positive, happy, friendly, hardworking person. Be very competitive, but be a good competitor.
Fair. Okay.
You know. So
that's fantastic.
That is my biggest advice, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. So thank you guys so much for tuning into that video. That was a lot of fun. It started out with just a casual conversation that turned into an interview, but that's when interviews are the best, when you don't really have to be so formal. You can just talk about your experience, and you can talk about who you are and what you do. And I think that's really important when it comes to an interview, because you don't want to make it formal. You want to have the casual conversation of just being yourself and what it's like to coach. So thank you again to Sacred Heart and to Will for talking to me about their experience and their program. If you like more of this content, make sure to leave a comment down below of what other content you want to see or who else you want to see me interview as well when it comes to college athletics. Make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel and turn that bell on for notifications for when I post a new video as well. Make sure to check us out on all our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Make sure to check us out on all of those, and make sure to check us out online for more behind the scenes content of what you want to see and my adventures in the tennis world as well at www.tweenerheadtennis.com. And make sure to keep following us for the rest of the week. And we have a lot of new stuff coming out soon, so make sure to stay tuned. Thanks, guys. Hope to see you soon.